Hello, bro. I'm recovering from a cold, so I sound extremely nasally. But we're just gonna have to deal with it. How are you?
I think you sound great, Mary.
Thanks. How's life over in New York? You said you had a busy morning, which sounds very dramatic.
Yeah, whatever. I can sit here and chat about my day, but just running around and
Well,
whatever.
I have not done what I usually do 3 times a day, which is check your Twitter feed yet. Any tweets this morning?
No. I've been quiet for a
Usually
bit.
get started later in the day. Good. I'm reading this book that you should read because you would love it, and you may have read already, called The Stupidity Paradox.
Okay.
It's fantastic. It's by 2 sociologists who specialize in organizational behavior. And basically, they're fleshing out something that I've thought for a long time about people in the workplace. And they've put the perfect words to it, which is how in so many jobs, we see it in data tech, we see it in education, everywhere. People somehow abandon their basic, common sense. So you have these intelligent, obviously highly educated people who just become stupid. And the book fleshes out why that happens, within organizations and to a certain degree within the human psychology of coping with work. We have to abandon certain parts of our intelligence in order to make things function. But it's hilarious. And each section is about, their titles that sound like they were written by you, but they're very serious, sort of functional stupidity and coping stupidity. Really, I forget the authors' names, but I will post it in the links, and it's a fantastic read. So
excellent. Well, now I've got my book recommendation. Now I've got homework for the weekend. I didn't. On Friday afternoon, I was going to get homework, but I'm excited, and I'm excited also that we have Timo here today.
Let's bring him on. Yeah,
let's bring him right on.
Hello, Timo.
Hello. Now I have to figure out which kind of stupidity I have today, which I don't know yet.
Today or in general?
Maybe we can start today and then we can venture to in general. So I don't know. Yeah.
The only stupidity you have, I'm sure, is that it's 7 p.m. In Europe. Stupidity, which is we're all allowed to check out a little bit at that time, right, on a Friday.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I met you, of course, like many people I know, through Lauren. Give us your intro.
Oh, is it long or is it a short one? Okay, I'm trying something in the middle.
Or the stupid one.
Yeah.
The stupid one. Oh, that's hard. No, I just try a normal one. I don't know how to put it on a stupid level. So I have a product background, and I figured out that people start listening to me when I put some data into my slides. Because no one wanted to listen to me, that I said, hey, what a good idea. We can test out this kind of feature and so on. And people were basically ignoring me. And then I said, look, there's this data that tells us that 40% of people are using this kind of stuff, so we should really do it. And it changed everything. So from that point of time, it was my magic ingredient to do product. And at some point I said, why not do it full time? So I switched over to do all things data. So I was doing freelance and consulting, I think now over almost 10 years. My sweet spot is like we had in the invite, of course, it's event data. So I have an analytics background. So event data is, let's say, my natural currency of data. And I put it like, so I went broad by doing all crazy stuff and sometimes also crazy stuff that Lauren is doing. And then I thought, maybe I should really focus on one thing. I basically went narrow again, just said, okay, I really focus on, how you can actually work better with event data. So design it better, analyze it better, get more of it, get less of it. So the different kind of aspects of it.
So product people started listening to you more once you started using data or emphasizing data. Management did. Okay.
I started out product in a very, very classic old white man kind of company. And it was I was the product manager, and I basically had a meeting once a week where the management team was dictating my backlog. I was saying look, this week we do this, and this week we do that. And then I thought, okay, actually, it's not really like kind of the, let's say, the playbook of a product manager. So I thought I do different stuff here. And so I was looking for ways how to change that. And data was definitely something that helped. Like quantitative data helped, qualitative data as well. So just shoot a video of someone struggling with the whole product did also like a huge impact in this kind of group, especially like because we picked a random person from the street. So we didn't even faked it. So this was the point where I was starting out with data and really see, okay, it can bring different things to the table in these kind of discussions.
Sure. And so like what when we talk about like, I think everyone here knows what we mean when we say events data. We're talking about like, how someone, like when an event fires, like when you're on a website or you're on an application, you're taking actions with some kind of product or property or digital property. Like what's the landscape look right now? Like what are you recommending to people? What are you not recommending? Like what are the challenges you're facing? Now you've been doing this 10 years. Like what like we're in vendor land right now where there's 100 different solutions for everything. Like what how are you negotiating all that and putting together your solutions?
Okay, I'm trying to do it as short as possible. So first of all, forget the tools, forget the vendors. It's not important in the first place. I think first of all, you have to make sure, of course, like what you want to do with this stuff. So in the end, like with all data use cases, so you should understand, okay, actually, what I'm planning to do is this. So am I planning to support the growth team to improve customer activation because they need to understand if people get to a point where they get value from the product or if they're struggling to do that. And so in the end, event data is usually behavioral data. So it's like most of the time it's people behaving, let's say with your application. Sometimes it's systems behaving with some kind of stuff. And this behavioral data can help us to maybe do better communication and marketing, maybe to help the sales team to figure out of a list of, let's say, 200 leads, which 10 are most promising, which they should call this week. Just because like we can analyze what people do. And once you have an idea from there, then you know which kind of stuff you should measure. And then, and then you measure it. And then in the end, of course, like, it depends on what you want to do. If you already have, let's say, a data warehouse set up, it might be all right that you just use a tool that just collects the data and puts it into your data warehouse in a nice event table. So this could be something like Snowplow, Rudderstack, or Segment, which are quite good for that. If you also want an analytics layer on top, so you don't want to build your stuff and don't want to write SQL, then of course like, it makes sense to go into, let's say, the typical former mobile, former product analytics, and now let's say, I don't know, event analytics like Amplitude or Mixpanel, where you can then actually work with the stuff directly. So it depends a little bit like what kind of setup you have as a data team, how to do it. But I think, again, like the important part is like that you have a clear idea which team you want to support and in which kind of way. So.
We lost Lauren for a minute, but she always comes back.
Let's see.
Let's see. Give the what's happened with Google Analytics and GA4, and what's the
we want to go there.
Just again, for those of us who kind of observe event analytics from the outside,
right?
Give us the quick summary.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. So Google Analytics, by the way, was a tool in the story that I just told, which I then introduced to get this kind of data. Because like it was 2006, so it was not like that let's say the tools and options were queuing up in front of the door. So it was definitely limited. So to understand the Google Analytics problem, so first I have to understand there are two versions. There's Google Analytics Universal, which is kind of the old version. And then there's Google Analytics 4, which is like the newest version. Google had to move there. So the UA one is, I don't know, 8 years old, 9 years old. It's really like based on an old kind of model, also like how website works. So it was based on page views and so on. But today we have apps and even like websites who behave like apps. And so like you cannot really bound everything on which pages someone has opened. So you really want to introduce something like events. And so Google introduced GA4 as a new version. But they did one thing which is really weird, but sometimes happens. Like, I think they never really figured out what's their strategy with this kind of product, because the original GA, I think, had a quite good focus. So it was mostly focused on people starting out with analytics to, let's say, a kind of advanced level that still was enough for a lot of companies to just run with this kind of tool. And with GA4, they couldn't decide if they go for the pros or for beginners. So they landed somewhere in the middle and basically made everyone unhappy with that. So for the pros, it's still not enough. So of course, you want to have more. So you get weird event data now into BigQuery, which is really hard to work with, at least initially. And then for the ones who are starting out, the whole interface is pretty much too complicated for them. So they don't find the stuff what they want to do. So they landed, so they were trying to aim for the best and landed somewhere, I don't know, where no one really understands what they want to do. And I think this is the kind of problem product-wise what you have. Second aspect to that is like, at least like in the EU, based on data privacy concerns, you have a second problem with GA. Because you always send your data, your customer data, to US-based servers. So you don't have the option to say, no, actually, I want to keep it in the EU, which you can do with other analytics providers, but you can't with GA. So it's like, this is another aspect. But I think mostly it's like they made some product decisions which are weird, and I think like create problems. But something that I always also like underestimate is like, they have a huge install base. I mean, they are, let's say, I don't know, 90% market share. And most of the people, of course, they stick with that because like they learn it, they go with that. And so, and you still have marketing teams who build everything on top of that. I mean, this was always like, put it like this, when Google Analytics came out, it was an extension for AdWords or Google Ads, what it is today, to show the value of AdWords on your website. And so, and this kind of stuff is still in there. So this tool is still built to, hey, it's great with Google Ads and so on. And so, of course, if you have a marketing team that highly depends on that someone builds audiences in your analytic tool and push it back to Google Ads, you will not go away from GA because like for them, it's essential.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wondered about that because I've yet to hear a positive review of the new Google Analytics, and yet obviously it's out there and being used. But that answers my question why it's just the distribution, and then it's integrated already with so much of what teams are using. So it's what will continue to be used. It's still shocking though that seems to be inciting so many complaints, or that they haven't iterated more quickly to improve it. You know, being Google after all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So you have a product that doesn't generate revenue. So you have to ask the question, why is this stuff out there? So every other analytics product out there, I mean, in the end, they have to earn money. So they have a paid plan, so you pay money for it. And so at least like you have some kind of idea that they put some effort under it to make a good product so that people not go away. And with GA, you have this, yes, you have a paid plan. If you have high volume, then you have to pay for it. But underneath, where at least like 95% is, you don't really know what the business model is. So I just made one assumption what the business model is, but who knows? So it's not really clear. It's still weird because like I really have to say, so when the old Google Analytics, and so I still can remember this time, let's say 2006 to 2010, analytics tools were basically unusable, most of them. So they were super slow. I don't know, they had the crappiest user experience you can possibly imagine. And this was something that Google Analytics did really, really well. So they really put a lot of effort into make it easy. They introduced sampling, better caching of the data, so it was quite quick. And they had good UX. So of course we had to learn it, but still it was really good. But I don't know, I guess the team left or someone else did, or it doesn't really had, I don't know. let's say, put it like this. If you talk to 10 people, you have different kind of theories, what they think, what it is. Some people think that they just try to push everyone into BigQuery and do stuff there. But even this, then you would say, hey, if you want to have the people in BigQuery produce good event data, and not they're trying to do. So they even have still weird stuff in there. I would say, yeah, then let's do segment grade kind of event data, which is, I guess, not so hard to do, at least not for Google, but they haven't done it. So
for whatever reason, it hasn't been prioritized. Yeah, interesting, interesting.
What I'll get a little controversial here. What do you think about all the silly? There's a couple trends here, right? There's RudderStack, which is based on segment, and then iTouch, which is now based on RudderStack. There's composable CDPs out there. Composable CD. They're more marketing cases, but there can be product cases around CDPs. There's composable CDPs now, but all the composable CDPs are actually kind of like just becoming CDPs themselves.
Right.
So like, what's there to make all this? Like, how does somebody just wade through all this noise out there and figure stuff out of what's good for them and what isn't? Like, if someone's just out, what should they do besides call you for consulting advice?
Yes, always talk to your consultant. So never do stuff on your own. No, it's a good question. So first of all, I think the whole composable CDP thing just got thrown away by HighTouch with the announcement like, hey, actually, we were the big ambassadors of composable CDP, but now looks like we have to build a real CDP. I mean, we all know this. You create this new kind of category because, like, you read a book that category creation is pretty good in marketing, and so yeah, here we are. I think in the end, there's some aspects to it. So I think one thing which is interesting, Alex Dean, the CEO of Snowplow, wrote a really good post where he said, like, it looked like, at least so far, that event collection by itself was not sexy enough that people would buy it just for it. But he still believes that it should be, which I think too, because like in the end, it's like kind of your foundational layer. But this at least explains why everyone was moving in different direction. I mean, Segment started out as an enhanced tag manager, call it like this. Then they had this event pipeline, which brought them a lot of customers because it was a really, really good product. But they still figured out, okay, maybe we don't really earn enough money. So in the end, where do we have to go? We have to go where the marketing teams are. And I think this is like the movement that you see as well. So like with the others as well. So marketing teams have tremendous amounts of money. And so when you build something for them, you are now in a different kind of category or maybe a different kind of budget that is buying you. And so this makes you attractive. And I think this is like the kind of movement where everyone is moving now on the CDP thing. Just because this is the stuff that marketing tools are not now buying for different reasons. So one is like because acquisition got so hard. So of course, customer data might be now interesting to do. If someone asked me what to do, I would say forget all this stuff about customer data for a moment. I mean, yes, it's important in the end. But I think the interesting part of this whole stuff, what is happening there is the activation part. So because like this comes back to what I just said before, it's like, okay, when I have a marketing team and I have some kind of ideas how I have my leads and I can get some context data about my leads, which enables me to run better targeted, let's say, email campaigns with them. So this is something as a marketing team that might be interesting for me. So I think for me in the end, what makes the whole space interesting is the activation part. It's like that, okay, we collect all this different kind of data, let's say static customer data or behavioral data, and then we bring it all together and we enable marketing teams to make, let's say, specific kind of targetings, which in the end creates better messaging or better communication. And I think this is the important part. And if you go from there, you will find a solution in this whole CDP market that can serve this with the less amount of, I don't know, implementation headache. Because of course, like they want to get you on the whole package, but you don't need the whole package. So you just need 2 or 3 use cases where you think, okay, here we can improve communication or product experience. And then you can implement the stuff for that.
Yeah, absolutely. What are I always like talking war stories and things like that. What are some of the places where people get things wrong, and like what nightmares have you had to untangle or seen, or like what are the mistakes people make, and how can they avoid them when they're setting up their analytics, customer analytics, event tracking, etc.
Right. I think there are two. One is the one that I always come across and where I'm trying to preach now for 2 years, let's say with moderate success, is like have a proper design, don't track too much. So, or don't track too many. In the end, I have this claim that I say, okay, you can track 20 events and you're already in a really good water. So you really have a good setup that is usually enough to track your product, your business, and your customer journey, and not 300 or 100 or 150. Because like with everything that you track, in the end comes maintenance. So you have to make sure that the stuff really comes. So you have to test it, you have to monitor it. You have to tell your developers, no, please don't change this stuff because then everything breaks. And so if you have to do it for 20, it's doable. If you do it for 150, it's basically built to fail. I think this is one problem. The second problem, which is still a hard problem, this is more technical problem, is like losing identities. So what does it mean? It's like, so I track events across different kind of platforms. So I start on the website. Then usually like when I do a sign up, I switch applications. So you can always see this in the URL. So you often switch to app.blah, blah, blah. So you technically go to a different server and different application. And then maybe even stuff happens in the back end, so where you also send events. And these are all point of failures where you can just lose the identity of this kind of person that's going through. And then when you later identify or work with the data, you will just figure out, oh, look, our funnel is broken. So like the steps that you measure, it's happening. But it turns out it's not really like, let's say, a customer experience problem, but it's just a technical problem because like you just lose 50% because you screw up identity tracking on the way. And this is interestingly still something where a lot of people are struggling. Also like to struggle to understand that this stuff even exists and how to debug it and how to figure out if you have a problem there. I would say these are kind of the two major things. But let's say most importantly, really like the design thing. So because if you go around and you go in your company and say, look, we track now user interactions or user events, then you have people lining up who have the weirdest kind of, let's say, requirements. So now I'm doing this kind of workshop. So, and in every workshop, there's one person who said, wouldn't it be nice if we could measure on which kind of item in the navigation the people are clicking? And then if you're not really prepared for that, you're like, yeah, okay, I don't know, it doesn't really seem useful, but it doesn't really hurt. But of course, let's say in the end it hurts because like you create too much noise, so you cannot really work with this. So try to go into an event analytics tool and try to find the right ones out of a list of 200. So you basically are lost because at some point you don't even understand them anymore, what it does. So to have a clear focus on what kind of behavior is really driving business value, I think is the essential step one. When you have that, then you can at least avoid these design problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And my favorite is always when people have 2 or 3 different solutions set up.
Oh yeah,
They have one, and then a new person comes in, and then they're like, well, like it's all wrong, so let's just start from scratch. But then they leave the old stuff up, and
This is definitely one of the favorites. Another favorite that I have is like when you basically start to dissect their stack, you figure out they have 6 events for sign up, but they're all named differently. And they're even fired in different places because like you cannot even go to a developer and ask, hey, can you just look in this kind of part of code if we have 6 events there? No, you don't. You have them basically spread out across the whole code base because on the developer side, you have the same problem. So every developer thought, well, I will place it here. And the other one thought, I will place it here. So it's basically like an archaeological excavation that you then figure out, okay, oh, look, we have these 6 events which are basically doing the same stuff. But funnily, they're even different in the end. They don't even produce the same numbers. So, yeah, you can have fun with that.
There's all kinds of silliness that people get into. The other is the carousel. I call it the carousel, which is like, someone will have a segment or something, and then I don't know, something won't be set up right. then a new person comes in, new VP of marketing or, head of product or something. They then they say, well, like, let's scrap this. Let's get a new thing in, right? It's part of their initiative that they want.
Right.
And then they get a new one in. And then a year later, that person leaves. And then a new person gets hired. And then now you're back to the original segment again and it's just one big carousel of switching these in and out. It's really funny.
Dare I say a carousel of stupidity?
It's just a carousel. It's like,
it's sort of about how things are driven by each new person trying to prove themselves and prove whatever arbitrary KPIs or goals they've set rather than actually achieving.
That's right. And I think in the end, it's a little bit also like hatching stuff, because I think people are often comfortable in just one tool. So they know, okay, I worked with, I don't know, X, Y, Z before, and I know it pretty well. And I don't want to take the effort to learn these other stuff. And don't hold me accountable. I didn't introduce it. It's not my tool. So if you want to hold me accountable, I have to introduce my tool and so on. And yeah, it's great. When people come to you and say, I have this sometime, not so much anymore. It was definitely more time ago when people come to you like, yeah, we want to have a new analytics tool. So why? Yeah, because the numbers doesn't really make sense. I was like, okay, but did you check if you maybe have a technical problem and so on? No, it's the tool. So well, I will make a bet that the numbers look totally the same in the next tool that you introduce, because I guess you have a different problem. Maybe you have a product problem. But yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. But you're right. I saw the same stuff where people, you on a call, you discuss with them, they're quite new, 2 or 3 months in, and the first thing that they tell you is like, yeah, I'm thinking about if I should introduce X, Y, Z. I was like, why? So yeah, because I don't know, I cannot do this. You can look in the docs. Of course you can. You can do it. I mean, do you know how much effort it is to implement something new? And you don't do it for anything. I mean, you still have to get value out of it. So it's not like you implement something new and voila, the whole business runs better. So the work still has to be done. And I mean, implementation is hard stuff. So some companies takes ages until you get this stuff done. So no, if you want to have a new tool, think about it 10 times.
As a consultant, you, to a certain degree, have the luxury of picking and choosing the work you want to do, right? So what are the jobs that you find most interesting, or the ones you take on essentially these days? I assume it evolves.
Yeah, it did. I think I have 2 buckets. One is let's say a startup after product market fit, seed round, and basically want to build something from scratch to now support their growth activities over the next 12 months. And it's basically often greenfield. They have a little bit, but you can usually throw it out because it was just for the first phase. And so at least you have the opportunity to do something really good for the next 12 months. When they get the next funding, of course, they get the data team, and then that happens what Lauren just describes, and someone comes and says no, now we build the modern data stack. But you have this window of opportunity for 12 months to do really good stuff. So this is something which I really like. And the other thing is to go into really big setups and solve these things where someone contacts me on LinkedIn and said, look, we have a problem. We have a team trying to solve this for 10 months already. They didn't really have to figure it out. We need someone from the outside. Can you do it? A kind of detective work. And these are totally interesting because this is just land of edge cases, because they often have these huge kind of setups and you discover really crazy stuff which you wouldn't really expect, but it's kind of fun because you have to go really, really deep into the sometimes code base and network requests that are going out to really figure out where stuff goes wrong. And I mean, there are a lot of places where stuff can go wrong. But this is interesting too. So if someone comes around with this, especially with this, let's say, initial sentence was oh, we were trying to solve this with 10 people already for 10 years, then it's something where I say, yeah, count me in. So.
Right on. And anyone in our audience, feel free to ask questions for Timo or
right.
And if you want to hop on, just put it in the chat, and I'll give you I'll go ahead and give everybody the link if they want to join us. Val had a great comment here saying that he can relate. It's a hard sell even when you show massive benefits. I have a question, but you go ahead, Lauren, with another question because I need to post this link.
No, I mean, Timo, what are the trends right now? What's going on with all this? What's going on? And you can call things out as you see fit. If they don't make sense or they do make sense, what are the trends? What are people doing in the last 6 months, last year or so?
So we covered the CDP piece, so we leave it aside. So interesting thing is event analytics or product analytics was pretty boring for the last 6 years. Nothing really happened. So incremental improvements. But now in the last 12 months, we saw a lot of stuff. So first of all, basically all the big product analytics tools now go broad. So they introduce marketing analytics, which needs a little bit different kind of data schema and different kind of use cases to cover. So they basically go after Adobe and let's say GA360. So this is interesting. So they open up the model and they invested heavily into, let's say, more tooling within the tool to do this stuff. And the other thing, this is the part where I'm pretty excited about, is finally, we get event analytics on top of data warehouse. So it's this was something that I was waiting for 5 years. So I was always annoying all these vendors about why it's not possible. So why should I do it? Because we were building always parallel setups. So we were piping stuff into data warehouses, and then the other pipe went into a product analytics tool, and then we had both worlds living next to each other, which is ridiculous. And this, I wouldn't say so. There are not so many people doing it, but at least this whole possibility to pipe stuff into data warehouse and then enrich it with other kind of things. So maybe even get more event sources, from CDC, from streams or whatever, and then select the ones that are useful for you for an analysis, and then put an analytics tool on top. I think this is something which is really interesting and exciting. And so just to maybe, I don't know, make a bold statement, maybe gets us in a position that this approach at some point can even provide maybe better BI, or let's say better BI use cases in the end. Because events give you at least 2 or 3 layers more than, let's say, star schema metrics and fact and dimension tables. So if you derive your metrics from events, you usually can answer more questions under this system. But this is something which is, I would say, 2 or 3 years out. So it's still not there, but it might come. So this might be interesting too, so that we see a new approach to do business intelligence. Because the interesting thing is, these two worlds still live next to each other, even when people don't understand it. Everyone thinks it's data, but I always call it there's Planet BI and there's Planet Analytics, and both think they do the same thing, but they don't do. So it's often really totally different kind of things. So,
and for people who want to kind of go deeper on that, I would highly recommend Timo's Substack. Is it the hipster data stack?
Yeah, it was the hipster data stack, but I basically just put it under my website. I may just have to rename it, so I have to find a better name. It was
because it's sort of the potential rapprochement, if you will, between BI and event analytics. It's not intuitive, I think, for any of us. That's why they're 2 separate worlds. But you've had a few articles that kind of flesh that out, that have helped me understand that. So, and that frankly make event analytics seem a lot more exciting. So
that's right. No, the hipster data stack is still from the time where I figured out if you want to really get a huge following on LinkedIn and so on, so you always have to just make posts about how I built this crazy cool new data stack with all the new cool tools where everyone is basically talking about. In best case, it's all this open source. So this is where then I thought, okay, you can just call it the hipster data stack, because it's maybe not something that you put in production, but at least it gives you views and followers and so on. So, which maybe is also worse for something. But I definitely will rename it, because I mostly really just now focus on event data, not on posting about weird stacks anymore. Yeah.
What are you using to track all of your events and your funnels and stuff?
Yeah, very good question. So for the website, which is just 5% of the events, I use something, let's say a European breed, which is Pivot Pro. because like it has a nice setup with consent and so on, which is like quite important. And I basically source all the events from databases, webhooks, and other parts, so from the other systems. And then I model my own kind of, let's say, data table in the end, or activity table, and then I put, in my case, amplitude on top to analyze the stuff. But I don't do really so much content anymore because, like, yeah, it's annoying.
Let's bring Ramona in, one of our regular contributors now. I think she deserves a contributor slot. Hi, Ramona. Meet Timo.
Hi, Lauren, Mary, and Timo. Hi. You're giving me too much credit. So let's see. So many notes that I took and I wanted to address, but as a tech bro, can I do a little bit of a fun bit here? Because okay, first of all, I need to settle a thing with Timo from months ago about the Freude. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the book. Okay.
We can't see it. Hold it like in front of your face.
Let me. I think. Okay.
Hold it like
it's
this.
something with the background. Okay. So now.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So.
Atlas of the Heart.
Atlas of the Heart. Yeah.
So this is the book that I referenced, but somehow it got lost in there. And this is.
Freudenfreude.
See.
Yeah.
So I didn't come up with this.
No. I was expecting that you would not come up. It was just like funny because, like, I mean, of course, so yeah, I'm German, so of course, like, let's say the words have different kind of meaning to me. So, like, of course, like Schadenfreude, which also went into English language.
It's also a book, yeah.
Yeah, it's right. And so, but it's interesting because, like, but I never really saw this. Anyone in Germany made this kind of thing. Even like, let's say, the creative minds could maybe come up with this thing to say something like Freudenfreude. They never really made this, which can tell something about Germans in general. But we shouldn't go into that. So
okay, and well, and actually, the Freudenfreude word and conversation came in the context of Lauren. She was a guest in a show, so. I think the title was Schadenfreude, and then I thought, oh, there is a Freudenfreude, and then that caused the whole conversation. And I brought this for to settle something. Lauren, in the announcement for this chat, she's represented as a dumpster. I don't know if Lauren, I don't know what's behind that, so I brought a lighter. Because if we want to do a dumpster fire, so
I love it. Yes, I don't. Are we gonna get banned from LinkedIn for literally starting dumpster fires?
Dumpster fire.
I love the props. So in was it last week? 2 weeks ago, we had Arpit on, who also brought props. Who was changing hats on all the time, and I wore my silly.
Yes,
UV ray protector hat. I didn't realize, because since then I've watched The Handmaid's Tale, that the hat I was wearing looks scarily like the hats
inspired
handmaids wear, which I was like, oh my god, I just wore a handmaid's hat on air for an hour. So,
well, I mean, everything's props and gimmicks at this point, right? Everyone's got to use. I mean, did you see the pictures that came out of? What was it last month? The DBT festival. There's, everyone's in their duck suits, and there's someone dressed up like the Munchkins, like the Lollipop Guild or something.
And the snowflake polar bear, and all of it.
Everyone's got to have their props.
And all this composable CDP stuff. So ever since I saw it, it kept popping up on LinkedIn. Every time I see that written, I read it compostable. So I cannot move past the compostable thing, because especially in the context that you are all addressing here, right? The dumpster, we put all in and we compost it. So eventually, isn't that what's all ended up being? And
I think so.
To tie it up into the carousel that you were discussing, right? it all comes down to repeating. So it's compostable. I'm sorry.
Combustible.
Yes.
Yeah, combustible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Combustible. We have it here.
Yeah. So you can just throw your customer data on a compost and then just see if something organic comes out of it. So
You took it really.
That is beautiful. The way you took it. Yes, organic. Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. I want to get Timo's take on a topic that we talk about all the time, and that I think Lauren's working on a blog about it, on the latest on the data influencer world. I think it's kind of evolved over the past year, and that there's emerged in part thanks to Lauren, in part I would say thanks to this show. There's an awareness of what bullshit it is, and how superficial it is, and how it either needs to evolve or go away. Timo is someone who, again, you've got your own Substack. You could also be accused of began an influencer. What's your take on that?
I am. So sorry, guilty.
And you make videos, the worst.
I also make videos. Okay, maybe it's just, of course, like I can do the typical answer. It's just a representation of society. So, of course, you have, I don't know. So it's really hard. So put it like this. I'm always hoping for people coming out. So first of all, of course, I think it's great when people put something out. So let's say put something positive in the first one. So sharing, first of all, is good. Then, of course, like it's the intention behind it. I mean, naturally, I love the people who put something out. So I did X, I learned this one, and so this is something that I want to share. And I don't put under it is like, and I also created this PDF, and please comment with metrics to get this PDF and so on. So if you don't do this, I think this is great, because like you basically can give someone to other people. But other people have other objectives. So I think there are definitely people who build a business model on top of a lot, let's say, big following, because like they hope that at least like 0.5% will trickle in their paid courses, or I don't know, whatever they're doing. So, which is fine. I mean, I think there are definitely things which becomes complicated. I think Lauren did a great job to write about it. So because we call it influencing. So in the end, like there are people who come into this, they don't really have any kind of idea what this all is. And then they read a post about, hey, this is a cool data stack that you can build. And they think, oh yeah, look, they said a cool data stack. And look, and they had 200 likes and 60 comments. So this might be relevant. And at some point, these people go into their own company and build this stuff. And I think whenever you post, at least like I'm trying to think about this, whenever you post something, keep in mind, there might be someone out there who actually believes that, and reads it and believes it.
When you say something online.
Because it might be like this. And so what I'm, for example, trying to do is like when I do bold statements or things which, let's say, are not totally, or where I'm not 100% sure if it's right or not, I put a disclaimer there. I said, oh, look, this is an idea that I haven't validated it yet. So please be careful when you run around with this one. I don't do it every time, but I'm trying to do it as much as possible. And I would love if more people would do it like this. So yeah, so it's, also put it in context. I mean, like when you put stuff out there, you can say, yeah, this is how we built it in my last company, but my last company is X, Y, Z, and we had this kind of problems and we needed to solve this. So as a friend of mine always told me, like, yeah, we don't all build data stacks for FANG companies. So we build it for other use cases. So, and I think this is the dangerous thing. It's like when people put stuff out there without any kind of context, there is someone who believes that. And there's someone who basically screws up the whole data setup and the whole data team in a company. And I don't know, destroys all the trust that you can do with this stuff. Because let's be clear, you can use data to do really great things, but you need a lot of things to be in place for that. And if someone comes around and picks it up because they don't really know, and then, I don't know, blows everything up, you destroy a huge opportunity for this company. So maybe this is something for the influencers.
Yeah, I mean, it's, after FTX blew up, a bunch of these influencers are getting sued for, promoting it and everything. So, yeah, I see
Yeah.
people- my favorite is doing accounting in SQL, in DBT or whatever. That just drives me nuts. So that's my favorite influencer bit in the last couple of months. It's been popping up.
Yeah, luckily I haven't saw it, but yeah, it's right. So I'm lucky enough that I had an apprenticeship where I learned all this stuff, where I learned what can go wrong when you do accounting wrong, and also like which kind of person show up at your door when you do it wrong. So at least like that made me sensitive to answer to these kind of requests when you get them with like, I'm not sure if I want to be in this line of fire. So,
Right.
and if this is like the right tool stack for that. So,
Yeah, I think I tend to, because I'm in the very, perspective that's very critical of influencers, I tend to then overlook some of the ones who do great things. And I'll give an example is whose articles I try to read as much as often is Olga. What's her last name starts with a B?
Wilsowski?
Olga.
Yeah.
Yes. Who's in a similar niche as you, Timo.
We even have, so we do a monthly recap of all new things, so everyone can read this. So we do all linked lists together. Yeah.
And she's someone who's, I haven't spoken to Olga personally, so I don't know what motivates her personally, but what I glean from her work is she's someone who's learning all the time and also sharing in detail what she's learning, whether that's because that helps her or because she likes she has a natural teacher perspective, but like that's incredible work.
100%.
And yeah.
No, I really want to shout out. So if you are really like, if you're someone who basically like someone throws on your desk, hey, you have to do some product analytics kind of stuff and you have to use SQL and you don't have an idea how to do it because like it's sometimes really painful to do it, just go to Olga's Substack, pay the money for it. It's 1,000 times return. Really like, because she's laying out all the different kind of things, how she developed this stuff. I mean, she has actual SQL queries on her website. She explains them, how they work and so on. And of course, like this is the kind of content that I love to see and usually like consume. I mean, there's the thing like, it wasn't one of the book, I just forgot which one, where they just call, you have a lot of fast food content. So the content that looks quite attractive and they're like, so learn in which order SQL queries are getting executed. And so you always, so it's nicely done. You always think, oh, maybe I learned something new here. So maybe I click, and then you click through all these slides. And then in the end you think, yeah, or maybe not. And so it's always like, it looks tasty in the beginning, but then once you get through it, you're like, well, maybe not worth the 30 seconds that I spent on it. But it is what it is. I mean, it's like, so there are enough good people you can follow and you can see. And I mean, like, I think people should be clever enough to figure out whom to follow and which kind of thing to see, and just do this on your hands when you see this fast food content to just, or start to block people. I mean, this is something which I do. I think I didn't do it on LinkedIn for quite a while because it was still okay. But now it's really like a time has come where I mute and just block people. I don't want to see it anymore. So it's because, yeah, as I said, so it always leaves a weird feeling in the stomach when you read this stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's some really funny stuff out there at this point. Like, it's
everyone has to find their way, and like maybe I don't know, maybe they cannot put out their work because like it's all confidential, and so this is the only way what they can do. So I have this thing that I always assume something positive, and I sometimes don't really see it. So there might be a reason for it, and we all cannot see yet. Maybe there's something.
Right. We have a question here from them.
Yeah.
I can't see who it's from. So sometimes people just show up as their names. Sometimes they just show up as user. But this is from someone who asks, how often are working on projects where you are moving analytics events from firing in device mode to cloud mode? Are there a lot of nice features that come with device mode, like amplitudes, Chrome plugin, and out-of-box implementation? But we are missing more and more events. Wondering if it's officially time to retire device mode events, or if we should settle for some resolution that we have.
Yeah, so I think for the important events that you track, so the events that you basically want to drive your growth initiatives, want to calculate some important, let's say, business metrics, for them, it's definitely time to move to cloud or server mode or whatever you want to call it. Just because you want to be sure that you get as many as possible. So you don't want to lose things into, let's say, the lousy front ends, which we have. So browsers is not a stable environment and you don't control it. So it's problematic. There's still a place for stuff that happens in the front end or in the client. And these are like, if you have some people who want to investigate how people interact, let's say, with your application. So you might have, let's say, maybe complex dialogue where people can do different kind of stuff. And so for UX design, it's super important to understand where people are struggling, what they don't understand. So this stuff will not go away from the clients, but everything else, retire it. And you have other features. So I know the Amplitude Chrome plugin is really helpful because like you can just fire up, you see where you click, and then you see all the events coming in. There's the same representation within Amplitude, which is called user lookup. So you just have to figure out your user ID. You look for user ID when you do all the testing, and then you see the same kind of live events just directly in Amplitude. So even when they come from the server or from somewhere else. So there are different ways. So debugging changes a little bit, but it's still possible to do all these things. Out of the box implementation will not work. But they never work, even in the front end.
And that question was from Madison Lukazik. So Madison, if you're if that didn't answer your question, just follow up in the comments, and Timo will tell you more. And thank you to Stephanie Murphy who posted Olga's Substack. That's terrific. Let's mention, but we'll wrap up at the top of the hour. But Amplitude launched a new pricing scale. I don't know if I didn't ask you before the show. Are you sort of aware of that, or?
No, I am.
Yeah. Do you want to let's just give the.
Yeah, finally. So, I mean, it was definitely something missing because like there was a huge gap between. So Amplitude always had a very generous, or still have, free plan. So you can do a lot of stuff to start out before you have to move on, let's say, to something paid. But if you have to move on, it was always like a huge amount, let's say, a really big step to take. And so, but there were some features. So, I mean, as I said, they introduced a lot of features in the last, let's say, 16, 18 months, which are really interesting, let's say, especially like for small companies. But they were not available because like you had to be on a paid plan, and then you had to buy for an add-on. And so like, and the new plan they have now out there, gives you the ability, for example, you get feature flagging and feature analysis, which I think, like, let's say, working in product is really helpful because, like, so releasing features without checking them afterwards is definitely one part of insanity. So it's like, why are you doing it? So you don't have to do it. So, but now you have a possibility to basically, let's say, to have an entry level to implement this and to start working with this, and to establish, let's say, some procedures that very big companies have. So I worked in 1-2 big companies where, of course, there's a natural thing. So you don't release anything 100% just with one deployment and then just cross your fingers and hope the world will be a better place. So you roll it out, let's say, in increments. So you roll it out metrics, do we screw things up, and so on. So this is usually like this should be your normal. But the problem was, like, of course, like the tool stack was complicated to get there. And so this is now an opportunity to start with something and to use something like this. So I'm quite happy that they did something like this. I mean, we will see. They are now entering the self-service or product-led growth thing. So let's see how it works out for them. So because the tool is still, I mean, because it's an analytics tool, so it's not like you go into there and you immediately understand what you do. So it's definitely still needs user investment to understand what you can do, and their investment to teach the people what to do. But the plan is there. First of all, it's really a good thing.
Yeah. I imagine it's a great option for someone who has, from say a previous company, has previous experience in Amplitude and then can go in and truly do self-service.
For example, this, or even comes from a bigger company and just has a specific way how they do product, and they cannot do it because like they would know that building all this stuff in their small company would, I don't know, would take too long and wouldn't really justify any kind of return on invest. So this really makes it easier.
Yeah. We're close to the top of the hour. Timo can go enjoy his Friday night in Denmark.
Just basically me on the sofa doing nothing. So.
Closing thoughts from anybody? Ramona?
I'm having. I had a lot of fun being here, so now I can get back to the long list of things. Yes, and a lot of FOMO for the low key that JT is doing in Westminster. Lauren, are you going?
Westminster,
New York. So Jason Taylor is doing a low key today. I think he got the idea from Ethan. So. Yeah. Timo, do you know what we're talking about?
I definitely know what you're talking about. And I can tell you, if you live in Europe and you follow people on LinkedIn, you are in a constant state of FOMO because like all the fun stuff happens over there. We have also our fun stuff, which is, let's say, a little bit different. But yeah, I would like to do both. So.
Well, it happens in New York most of the time. So we are all in a FOMO.
Westchester, Dan chimed in here. In Westchester, not Westminster. Awesome. Well, good. Yeah, no low keys for me. I think in LA we're doing one maybe next week. We have to get that posted. So good stuff. All right. Thank you, everybody. Ramona, work on some props for next week. Timo, we'll see you anytime. And Lauren, any final words? Or
no, Timo, where can people find you if they don't know who you are?
I think that's right. So the best place, I guess, is like my website, timodechau.com. Where at least, like, I hope most of the stuff is linked if you want to go further. And other ways, like, of course, on LinkedIn. I want to do more. I want to post more valuable content on LinkedIn again. So I was not good in the last 6 months because, like, yeah, I had other.
You're always kind of resisting. Do I want to be an influencer or not? So I think you go.
100%. I mean, it's honestly, if you present something like this, no one wants to be an influencer. So it's why should I influence people? I can convince people. That's fine, but yeah, not influencing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're all on tenterhooks waiting for Lauren's next big blog. The official tome on. My big problem is
I'm off Twitter, so I usually I miss the publishers.
Oh, they always get cheered around. I've got you know how there's narrative arcs in stories, like Man in a Hole, and then like there's like the Cinderella,
the hero story.
There's canonical stories, and I'm mapping out a bunch of different influencers to the stories that they tell.
Is my name in there? Or?
No, you're not.
Good.
It's an honor to not be in there, from what I understand. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks for a great show.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for everybody watching too.